The HSS Mercy's light drifted through the star-strewn void, its pristine white hull emblazoned with the universal Red Cross symbol of medical service. Major Naomi Barnes stood at the observation deck, watching the stars blur past as the massive hospital ship maintained its steady course toward the neutral medical station at Proxima Centauri. Still worried about those reports? Dr. Caleb Nguyen approached silently, his surgical scrubs slightly wrinkled after a 12-hour shift in the operating theater. Naomi's jaw tightened. Intelligence doesn't send alerts about Vorker Scout ships for no reason, Doctor. Especially not this close to our trajectory. We're a hospital ship, Naomi. Caleb's voice carried the gentle patience he reserved for anxious patients. Protected under the Interplanetary Medical Neutrality Accord. Even a Vorker respect that convention. She turned to face him. You haven't seen what I've seen. The Vorker don't think like us. Their conversation was interrupted by the ship's intercom. Dr. Nguyen to Emergency Bay 3. Incoming critical surgery. Caleb gave Naomi's shoulder a reassuring squeeze. Try to get some rest. We'll be at the station in 36 hours, and those wounded coalition soldiers need us at our best. As he hurried away, Naomi returned her gaze to the viewport. Something didn't feel right. The Vorker had been unusually aggressive in recent skirmishes, pushing boundaries that had remained unchallenged for decades. Still, attacking a hospital ship would be unprecedented, a war crime of the highest order. She tried to shake the feeling of dread as she walked the long corridors of the Mercy's light. The ship bustled with activity, nurses wheeling patients between wards, orderlies restocking medical supplies, doctors consulting in hushed tones. Many of the patients were human, but quite a few belonged to allied species from the Earth Coalition. In one room, she glimpsed a Rigelian child being fitted with a prosthetic limb, while further down the hall, a group of wounded Aldebaran diplomats received treatment for radiation burns. This was what the Mercy's light stood for, healing without boundaries, medicine transcending species and political divides. Naomi stopped at a security terminal, reviewing the routine reports from her team. Everything appeared normal, but the nagging worry persisted. She had served in active combat before transferring to hospital security, and her instincts had saved her life more than once. The first explosion ripped through the ship without warning. Naomi was thrown against the wall as the deck lurched beneath her feet. Emergency lights flashed to life as the main power fluctuated. Her security comm crackled with panicked voices. Major Barnes, we're under attack. 3 Vorker warships decloaked off the port bow. Impossible, she whispered, even as a second impact rocked the vessel. All security teams, initiate evacuation protocols, she ordered into her comm. Medical staff to emergency stations. Get everyone to the escape pods. The corridor filled with smoke as she sprinted toward the bridge, dodging frightened medical personnel and patients. Through the viewport at the end of the hallway, she caught a glimpse of 3 angular black ships, their distinctive purple energy weapons charging for another salvo. They're targeting a hospital ship, she gasped in disbelief. The Vorker knew exactly what they were firing upon. The Mercy's light broadcasted its medical designation on all frequencies, in all known languages. On the bridge, chaos reigned. The captain was desperately trying to strengthen the shields, but the Mercy's light had only minimal defensive capabilities, designed to withstand space debris and minor natural hazards, not military-grade weaponry. Status report, Naomi demanded. Decks 7 through 12 are breached, the navigation officer responded, his voice shaking. We've lost over 30% of our life support. Multiple casualties reported in the surgical wing and pediatric ward. Another blast struck, and a support beam crashed down nearby. Naomi helped pull a communications officer from the debris. Distress signal? She asked. Broadcasting on all emergency frequencies, but we're in the outer reach. It could be hours before help arrives. Naomi felt cold fury building inside her. Keep broadcasting. En route me to ship-wide communication. When the system acknowledged her, she spoke with all the authority she could muster. This is Major Barnes. We are under attack by Vorker forces. All non-essential personnel and all patients who can be moved must proceed to escape pods immediately. Medical staff prioritize critical patients for evacuation. Security teams assist with evacuation and maintain order. This is not a drill. As she finished, the ship shuddered violently. A hull breach alarm blared from multiple sections. They're targeting the escape pod bays, the tactical officer reported in horror. Naomi raced from the bridge toward the medical decks. She had to find Caleb. The corridors were filled with smoke and the cries of the wounded. Emergency bulkheads had sealed automatically, forcing her to take alternate routes through the labyrinthine vessel. She found him in Emergency Bay 3, working frantically to stabilize a patient even as the ship came apart around them. Caleb, we need to evacuate. Now. He didn't look up from his patient, an Arcturian female with severe plasma burns. I can't move her yet. 5 more minutes. We don't have 5 minutes. Naomi grabbed a nearby medical assistant. Prepare this patient for immediate transport. Caleb finally met her gaze, his face streaked with sweat and soot. What's happening? Who would attack a hospital ship? The Vorker. They knew exactly what we are. She pulled him aside as more medical staff rushed to prepare the patient. They're targeting escape pods. Caleb, we need to use the auxiliary craft in the maintenance bay. Another explosion, closer this time. The lights flickered and died, replaced by the dim red glow of emergency lighting. Together, they coordinated a desperate evacuation, gathering as many patients and staff as possible. Naomi's security team reported devastating news from all quarters. The pediatric ward had taken a direct hit. The surgical wing was exposed to vacuum, and dozens of escape pods had been destroyed as they launched. By the time they reached the maintenance bay, with the survivors they could gather, the Mercy's light was breaking apart. Through the viewport, they watched in helpless horror as a Vorker cruiser methodically fired upon a cluster of escaping medical pods. They're hunting the survivors, Caleb whispered, his voice hollow with shock. As their small craft pulled away from the dying hospital ship, Naomi's hands gripped the controls until her knuckles turned white. She glanced at Caleb, saw the same transformation happening in his eyes, disbelief giving way to grim understanding, then hardening into resolve. They fired on a hospital ship, she said, her voice deadly calm. This doesn't end here. Caleb nodded slowly, watching the Mercy's light fracture into burning fragments against the black canvas of space. No, he agreed, his healer's hands clenched into fists. It doesn't. The universe had witnessed an atrocity that broke the most sacred covenant between civilized species, and Earth would answer. The rescue was almost as harrowing as the attack itself. For 48 hours, the survivors of the Mercy's light drifted in their cobbled-together escape craft, rationing oxygen and treating the wounded with what little supplies they had managed to salvage. When the Earth Alliance ship Vanguard finally detected their distress signal and brought them aboard, Major Naomi Barnes was still at the controls, having not slept since the attack. Dr. Caleb Nguyen had converted their cramped cabin into a makeshift triage unit, performing minor miracles to keep the critically wounded alive despite severely limited resources. 137 survivors, Naomi reported numbly to the Vanguard's captain, out of a complement of over 800. The journey to Fort Aegis, the sprawling Earth Alliance military base orbiting Mars, passed in a blur of debriefings and medical examinations. Naomi refused sedatives, refused rest, refused anything that would dull her memories of the attack. Those memories were fuel now, feeding a fire that burned within her, cold and precise. Fort Aegis buzzed with barely contained fury when they arrived. News of the Mercy's Light massacre had reached Earth and its colonies. Public demonstrations demanding justice had erupted in major cities across the solar system. The political pressure was immense. Admiral Diana Pham's office overlooked the massive shipyards where Alliance vessels were constructed and repaired. The Admiral herself, a compact woman with steel-gray hair and a reputation for tactical brilliance, stood with her back to the door as Naomi and Caleb entered. Major Barnes, Dr. Nguyen. She turned to face them, her expression grave. Your first-hand account matches our intelligence. The Vorker deliberately targeted a clearly marked hospital ship, then hunted survivors. An unforgivable war crime. What's our response going to be, Admiral? Naomi asked, standing at rigid attention despite her exhaustion. Admiral Pham gestured for them to sit. That's why I've called you here. What I'm about to share is classified at the highest level. She activated a secure holographic display on her desk. Project Nemesis, informally known as the Fleet of Fury. The hologram showed sleek, predatory ships unlike any in the current Earth fleet. More angular, with an almost organic quality to their design. Drone ships? Caleb asked. Not exactly. Admiral Pham manipulated the display, revealing the interior of one vessel. These ships are piloted remotely, but through a revolutionary neural link system originally developed for medical purposes. Caleb leaned forward. The Hoffman Miyazaki neural interface? That was designed to help trauma victims process PTSD by separating traumatic memories from physiological responses. Exactly, Doctor. The Admiral nodded. Military applications were inevitable. We discovered that the same technology that allows therapists to help patients process trauma can also create an unprecedented connection between pilot and vessel. The ships become extensions of the operators' bodies, with reaction times and precision far beyond conventional controls. Naomi studied the schematics with growing interest. These could penetrate Vorker defenses before they even realize they're under attack. That's the plan, Admiral Pham confirmed. A swift, decisive strike to demonstrate that attacking medical vessels will not be tolerated. The Vorker understand only one language, superior force. Caleb frowned. Admiral, this technology was meant to heal minds, not create weapons. Sometimes the best medicine is preventative, Doctor, the Admiral replied coolly. If we don't respond with overwhelming force, the Vorker will take it as weakness. More hospital ships will burn. She turned to Naomi. Major Barnes, given your experience with the attack and your security background, I want you as tactical advisor to the Neuralink pilots. You know what we're avenging better than anyone. Naomi nodded without hesitation. When do we start? Wait, Caleb interjected. I need to understand the medical implications. The neural link creates a profound connection. If these pilots feel their ships being damaged, as if it were their own bodies. That's why I need you as well, Dr. Nguyen, Admiral Pham said. Your expertise with the original therapeutic applications of the technology is essential. We need these pilots operational and stable. Caleb hesitated, torn between his healer's oath and the memory of children dying in the Mercy's Lights pediatric ward. Finally, he nodded reluctantly. I'll monitor the neural health of the pilots, but I want it on record that I have serious concerns about weaponizing a therapeutic technology. Noted, Doctor. The Admiral's expression softened slightly. I understand your reservations, but right now, Earth needs you both. The attack on the Mercy's Light has pushed us to the brink of full-scale war. Our response must be measured but decisive. As they left the Admiral's office, Naomi noticed Caleb's troubled expression. Having second thoughts? She asked quietly. I became a doctor to save lives, not take them, he replied. But after what I saw on the Mercy's Light, he trailed off, then squared his shoulders. I'll help the pilots stay mentally whole. And maybe I can keep this technology from becoming something worse than it already is. Naomi placed a hand on his arm. We're not starting this war, Caleb. We're trying to end it before it can truly begin. But as they walked through the bustling corridors of Fort Aegis, both wondered if they were stepping into a darkness from which there might be no return. The Neuralink training facility was buried deep within the Olympus Mons military complex on Mars, shielded from both physical attack and electronic surveillance. Major Naomi Barnes watched from an observation gallery as a dozen pilots underwent their daily neural calibration routines. Each pilot lay in a specialized sensory deprivation chamber, their consciousness partly merged with sophisticated simulations of the Fury-class vessels they would eventually command. Most were veterans of previous conflicts with the Vorker, soldiers who had seen the brutality of the alien forces firsthand and volunteered for this experimental program. How are they adapting? Naomi asked Dr. Caleb Nguyen, who monitored the pilots' neural patterns on a complex array of displays. Physically, they're stable, Caleb replied, his brow furrowed. Psychologically, it's complicated. The neural link was designed to create distance between a patient and their trauma. We're doing the opposite here, forging an intimate connection between these pilots and machines of war. On the main view screen, a simulation played out, a squadron of Fury-class ships executing precision attacks on a virtual Vorker outpost. The vessels moved with uncanny coordination, more like a hunting pack of predators than machines. They're incredible, Naomi murmured. They're in pain, Caleb countered. Look at these patterns. He pointed to fluctuating neural signatures. When their ships take damage in the simulation, they feel it, not just as information, but as genuine physical and emotional distress. Can you mitigate that? Somewhat. I've implemented psychological buffers similar to those used in trauma therapy. But there's a trade-off. The more we shield them from the pain, the less effective the neural link becomes. One of the pilots, say, woman named Captain Sarah Reeves, emerged from her chamber, sweat-soaked despite the climate control. Naomi had reviewed her file, a decorated officer who had lost her entire platoon in a Vorker ambush. Major Barnes, Reeves acknowledged with a nod. Dr. Nguyen, how does it feel? Naomi asked. Reeves' eyes took on a distant quality, like nothing I've ever experienced. In conventional combat, your vehicle is a tool. With a link, the ship becomes you. You don't pilot it. You are it. She flexed her fingers unconsciously. I felt the wind resistance against my hull. Tasted the solar radiation. When I fired weapons, it was like extending my own arm. And when you took damage in the simulation? Caleb pressed gently. Reeves' expression hardened. It hurt. But pain is information, doctor. And I'd rather feel my ship's pain than lose another team to the Vorker because I couldn't react fast enough. After Reeves departed for physical therapy, Naomi turned to Caleb. These people have all experienced trauma at Vorker hands. They want payback. That's what worries me, Caleb said quietly. Vengeance is a powerful motivator, but it's poison to clear judgment, especially when we're talking about technology that literally connects human minds to weapons. Admiral Pham entered the observation room, accompanied by military and civilian officials Naomi didn't recognize. Status report? The Admiral demanded. The pilots are progressing faster than anticipated, Naomi reported. Combat simulations show an 87% increase in target acquisition and neutralization compared to conventional forces. Good. We're accelerating the timetable. First live combat test is scheduled for 0600 tomorrow. Caleb stepped forward. Admiral, with respect, these pilots need more time to... Time is a luxury we don't have, Doctor. Admiral Pham cut him off. Vorker forces have increased activity near the Epsilon Eridani colony. Intelligence suggests they're emboldened by the lack of significant response to the Mercy's light attack. What's the target? Naomi asked. A Vorker forward operating base in the asteroid belt, the Admiral replied. Small enough to be a manageable first engagement, significant enough to send a message. Caleb wanted to object further, but the determined expressions on the faces around him made it clear. The decision was made. Earth was striking back, and the fleet of Fury would lead the charge. The next morning, Naomi joined the command center as the neural link pilots entered their interface chambers. On massive displays, they watched as the unmanned Fury vessels, sleek, predatory ships with matte black hulls, were launched from their orbital construction facility. Neural link synchronization at 94% and climbing, reported the chief technician. Pilot's vital signs stable. Naomi glanced at Caleb, who monitored the pilot's mental states with intense concentration. Everything okay? She whispered. For now, he replied without looking up. But we're in uncharted territory. The ships accelerated toward their jump point, their movements fluid and coordinated in a way that seemed almost beautiful, like a deadly ballet choreographed by minds operating in perfect harmony. Approaching warp point, the mission controller announced. Jumping in 3, 2, 1. The ships vanished in flashes of blue-white light, tearing holes in space-time to emerge light years away, deep in the asteroid belt where Vorker forces had established a hidden base. For several minutes, The command center was silent except for the steady beeping of monitoring equipment. Then the feed from the Fury vessels came online, showing the target. A Vorker station built into a large asteroid, with several patrol ships guarding its perimeter. "They haven't detected us yet," came Captain Reeves' voice, strangely distant through a neural link. "Permission to engage?" "Granted," Admiral Pham replied firmly. "Show them what happens when they target our hospital ships." What followed was unlike any battle Naomi had witnessed in her military career. The Fury vessels attacked, not as individual ships, but as a single organism with multiple striking limbs. They seemed to anticipate the Vorker defensive measures before they happened, dancing through volleys of enemy fire to deliver precise, devastating blows. In the command center, the Neuralink pilot's vital signs spiked, heart rates accelerating, stress hormones flooding their systems as they experienced the battle not through view screens, but through the senses of the ships themselves. "My God," murmured a general standing beside Naomi. "They're unstoppable." Within minutes, the Vorker station's defenses were crippled. Escape pods jettisoned frantically from the structure as the remaining patrol ships were systematically disabled. "Finish it," ordered Admiral Pham. The Fury ships formed a perfect attack pattern and unleashed a coordinated barrage that reduced the Vorker base to fragments. Victory came swiftly, decisively. The Earth forces had suffered minimal damage, and the message was clear: attack our medical vessels and face annihilation. But as the Neuralink pilots were disconnected from their interfaces, Naomi noticed something troubling. They emerged not jubilant with victory, but shaken, some with tears streaming down their faces. "What's wrong?" she asked Caleb as he rushed to attend to a pilot who had collapsed upon disconnection. "The Neuralink doesn't just let them control the ships," he explained grimly as medical staff carried the unconscious pilot away. "It lets them feel everything, including the terror and pain of the Vorker they just killed." Naomi felt a chill run down her spine. They experienced the enemy's deaths. Not directly, but they sensed the fear, the desperation. Caleb's expression was grave. These pilots aren't just dealing with their own trauma now. They're absorbing the enemy's as well. Despite these concerns, Earth's political and military leadership celebrated the victory. News broadcasts throughout human space proclaimed the successful retribution for the Mercy's Light massacre. Public opinion polls showed overwhelming support for the fleet of Fury and calls for more decisive action against Vorker aggression. But as preparations began for a larger offensive, the Vorker response came through diplomatic channels rather than military ones. "They're claiming we've developed illegal mind weapons," Admiral Pham informed Naomi and Caleb during an emergency briefing. "They're telling other species that Neuralink technology violates some obscure provision of the Sentient Rights Convention, that we're weaponizing consciousness itself. That's rich, coming from those who fired on a hospital ship," Naomi said bitterly. "Maybe," Caleb said slowly, "but I've been reviewing the original Neuralink research. There's something we missed." He brought up complex neurological data on the briefing room's display. The link was designed for human minds to connect with machines. But these readings from our engagement show something unexpected, moments where our pilots seem to briefly connect, not just with their ships, but with Vorker consciousness. Admiral Pham frowned. "What are you suggesting, Doctor?" "The Neuralink technology might have applications beyond what we imagined. In the right circumstances, it might allow direct, mind-to-mind communication across species boundaries. Or it might allow us to strike at the heart of Vorker command," Naomi realized. "If our pilots can sense their thoughts, we could predict their every move," the Admiral finished. "Neutralize their leadership with surgical precision." Caleb looked troubled. "That's not what I meant. This could be an opportunity for understanding, not escalation." But the strategic implications were too tempting to ignore. Intelligence soon identified the location of the Vorker Central Command, a heavily fortified installation deep within the Horsehead Nebula, where their leadership coordinated the war effort and developed new weapons technology. "This is our target," Admiral Pham announced to the assembled command staff. One decisive strike to cripple their military and force them to the negotiating table. As the briefing concluded, Naomi noticed Caleb's growing distress. "You don't agree with this mission," she said when they were alone. "We're about to launch an all-out attack using technology we barely understand, against an enemy whose motivations we've never bothered to question," he replied. "The Vorker committed a terrible crime against the Mercy's light, yes. But what if there's more to the story?" "What more could there be?" Naomi demanded. "I saw them hunting escape pods filled with wounded patients, Caleb. Children." "I know." He met her gaze steadily. "I was there too. But this fleet of fury is taking us down a dark path. Revenge is not justice, and it certainly isn't peace." Naomi wanted to argue, but something in his words resonated with a doubt she'd been trying to suppress. The Neuralink pilots were showing increasing signs of psychological strain. Some reported nightmares filled with alien thoughts and emotions. Captain Reeves had been found wandering the corridors at night, speaking in what linguists later identified as a Vorker dialect. The technology was changing them, and perhaps, in ways they had yet to understand, it was changing the very nature of the conflict itself. The fleet of Fury approached the Horsehead Nebula with grim determination. Inside their neural link chambers at the Mars Command Center, the pilots' minds stretched across light years of space, guiding their deadly vessels toward the hidden Vorker command base. Major Naomi Barnes stood at the tactical station, watching the fleet's progress on the main view screen. The swirling gases of the nebula created a majestic backdrop for the coming battle, beauty and destruction, intertwined as they so often were in the cosmos. "Detecting Vorker defensive grid activating," reported the sensor officer. "Multiple gun platforms and patrol vessels moving to intercept." "They know we're coming," Admiral Pham observed grimly. "No matter. Proceed as planned." In a neural integration chamber adjacent to the command center, Dr. Caleb Nguyen monitored the pilots with growing concern. Their neural patterns showed increasing stress as they pushed deeper into Vorker territory. "Something's wrong," he said into his comm. "The neural links are experiencing interference. It's like static, but on a cognitive level." On the tactical display, the first wave of Vorker defenders engaged the Earth fleet. The Fury vessels responded with their characteristic precision, but Naomi noticed subtle differences in their movements, hesitations, overcorrections. "Report," Admiral Pham demanded. "The Vorker are deploying some kind of countermeasure," Naomi replied, studying the sensor data. "Energy signatures unlike anything we've encountered before." Caleb's voice came through with urgency. "It's affecting the neural links. Pilot's stress indicators are off the charts." His warning was cut short as several of the pilots began screaming. On the tactical display, their ships suddenly veered off course, some spinning wildly, others firing weapons in random directions. "What's happening?" The Admiral rushed to Naomi's station. "I think," Naomi felt a cold dread. "I think they've developed a weapon specifically to target the neural link." In the integration chamber, Caleb worked frantically to stabilize the pilots. Their vital signs were dangerously elevated, heart rates spiking, blood pressure soaring, brain activity chaotic. "Neural disruption field," he reported, his voice tight with concentration. "It's creating feedback loops in the link, trapping the pilots in cycles of fear and pain." Captain Reeves' voice came through, distorted and agonized. "They're in my head. I can feel them tearing at my thoughts." The battle deteriorated rapidly. Several Fury vessels, their pilots incapacitated by the Vorker weapon, drifted helplessly or crashed into debris. Others fought on, but with diminished effectiveness. Naomi made a decision. "We need to pull them out. Now." "We can't retreat," Admiral Pham insisted. "The Mercy's light. We'll have died for nothing if we lose the entire fleet of Fury here." Naomi countered. "Admiral, please. Something unexpected is happening with the neural links. We need to reassess." After a moment of tense silence, the Admiral nodded. "Begin extraction procedures." As the order was given to retreat, a Vorker energy pulse struck Captain Reeves' ship directly. In the integration chamber, she convulsed violently, then went perfectly still. Caleb rushed to her side, administering emergency treatment. Her neural patterns are completely destabilized, he reported. But there's something else. She's still receiving input through the link, even though her ship is destroyed. That's impossible, Admiral Pham said. Unless... Naomi's eyes widened with realization. Unless she's linked to something else now. In that moment, Captain Reeves gasped and sat upright, her eyes unfocused. When she spoke, her voice had a strange harmonic quality that sent chills down Naomi's spine. I see them, she whispered. I see why they attacked the Mercy's light. They thought it was carrying bioweapons designed to target their neural structures. They believed it was a research vessel disguised as a hospital ship. That's absurd, the Admiral protested. It was clearly marked. They intercepted transmissions, Reeves continued, speaking as if in a trance. Misinterpreted medical research data. They're terrified of us, of what they think we're becoming. They believe the neural link is the first step toward a technology that could dominate or destroy their minds. Naomi and Caleb exchanged shocked glances. Could it be true? A horrific act born not of cruelty, but of fear and misunderstanding? Admiral, Caleb said urgently. I think the Vorker weapon had an unintended effect. It's not just disrupting the neural link. It's creating a bridge between human and Vorker consciousness. Before Pham could respond, the tactical officer called out, Vorker flagship is advancing. Energy signatures indicate they're preparing to fire their main weapon array. All remaining vessels, focus fire on that flagship, the Admiral ordered. We end this now. Wait. Naomi moved to Caleb's side, looking down at the still-connected Captain Reeves. If the link is creating a bridge, can we use it? Can we show them the truth about the Mercy's light? Caleb hesitated, then nodded. Theoretically, but it would require a direct, concentrated link with their command personnel, and a psychological risk to our pilots. I'll do it, Naomi decided. I was there. I saw everything. I'll carry the memory. That's not possible, Admiral Pham objected. You're not Neuralink trained. Actually, Caleb interrupted, Major Barnes underwent preliminary neural link compatibility testing when we first arrived. Her neural patterns were exceptionally receptive. It wasn't strictly true. Naomi had only undergone basic screening, but the lie came easily to Caleb's lips. They needed to try something, anything, to prevent the approaching slaughter. Get me connected, Naomi ordered, already moving toward an empty integration chamber. And someone find me a direct channel to whoever's commanding that Vorker flagship. Minutes later, Naomi lay in the chamber, neural connectors attached to her temples and spine. The sensation was disorienting. Her consciousness seemed to float, untethered from her physical form. I'm going to route your neural link through Captain Reeves' connection, Caleb explained, his voice seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere. She's already established contact with a Vorker command neural network. It will be overwhelming at first. Focus on the Mercy's light. Focus on what you saw. Naomi closed her eyes and concentrated on her memories. The pristine corridors of the hospital ship, the patients under their care, the unprovoked attack, the escape pods full of wounded being methodically destroyed. The neural bridge activated with a shock that nearly drove her back to unconsciousness. Alien thoughts crashed against her mind like waves. Complex, multifaceted consciousness utterly unlike human thinking. Fear, determination, righteousness, emotions that transcended species barriers. And beneath it all, a terrible certainty. The Vorker truly believed they were acting in self-defense. Naomi pushed her memories across the bridge, showing the truth of the Mercy's light, its mission of healing, the innocents aboard, the horror of the attack. In return, she received flashes of Vorker intelligence reports, misinterpreted communications, paranoid conclusions drawn by military leaders convinced that humans were developing neural weapons to enslave their species. A tragic cascade of errors and fear. In the command center, tense minutes passed as both fleets held position, weapons primed but silent. Something's happening, the communications officer reported. We're receiving a transmission from the Vorker flagship. Audio only in standard English. Put it through, Admiral Pham ordered. A harsh, guttural voice filled the command center. We have received your memories. If what we have seen is truth, a grave error has occurred. We propose immediate cessation of hostilities to verify these claims. Admiral Pham looked to Caleb, who nodded urgently. Naomi's showing them everything. They're listening. After a moment of hesitation, the Admiral responded, This is Admiral Diana Pham of Earth Alliance. We accept your proposal for a ceasefire. But make no mistake, we require acknowledgement of and restitution for the attack on the USS Mercy's Light. If your vessel was truly a medical ship, as these shared memories indicate, the Vorker commander replied, then we have committed a grievous violation of interspecies law. We will submit to appropriate consequences. As the details of the ceasefire were negotiated, Caleb carefully disconnected Naomi from the neural link. She emerged exhausted, tearful, but with a clear-eyed determination. They didn't know, she whispered. They really thought the Mercy's Light was a weapon. That doesn't excuse what they did, Caleb said gently. No, but explains it. She sat up slowly, and it means this cycle of revenge can stop before it consumes us all. Over the following weeks, a fragile peace took shape. The Vorker High Command formally apologized for the attack on the Mercy's Light, offering substantial reparations to the families of those lost and committing to establish joint medical facilities in neutral territory as a gesture of atonement. Earth, in turn, agreed to full transparency regarding neural link technology and its intended therapeutic origins, allowing Vorker scientists to verify it posed no inherent threat to their species. The Fleet of Fury was not dismantled, but repurposed. With modifications guided by Dr. Caleb Nguyen, the neural link technology returned to its medical roots, helping trauma survivors process their experiences and, in time, enabling unprecedented communication between species. Many of the neural link pilots required extensive therapy. The ones who had touched alien minds during the conflict emerged profoundly changed. Neither fully human nor Vorker in their thinking, but something unique, carrying perspectives from both worlds. Captain Reeves, who had formed the deepest connection, became the first neural diplomat, a new kind of intermediary who could bridge the vast psychological differences between species, preventing the kind of catastrophic misunderstandings that had led to the Mercy's Light tragedy. 1 year after the attack, Major Naomi Barnes stood in the observation lounge of a new vessel, the USS Mercy's Promise, the most advanced hospital ship ever constructed by human hands. Beside her, Dr. Caleb Nguyen reviewed patient transfer protocols on a datapad. I still see it sometimes, Naomi said quietly, gazing out at the stars. The Mercy's Light breaking apart. The escape pods being targeted. So do I, Caleb admitted, setting down his datapad. I don't think those images will ever completely leave us. The new ship hummed gently around them, its advanced medical systems prepared to care for patients from dozens of species, including, for the first time, the Vorker, a direct result of the peace negotiations. Do you ever regret it? Naomi asked. Stopping the attack? There are still people who say we should have finished what we started, made the Vorker pay more dearly for what they did. Caleb considered her question carefully. Justice and vengeance aren't the same thing. What would destroying their command center have accomplished, beyond creating more hatred, more fear, more orphans and widows on both sides? I know you're right, Naomi said. But sometimes the anger still burns, he finished for her. That's natural. What matters is what we choose to do with it. A medical technician approached, nodding respectfully. Major Barnes, Dr. Nguyen, the first Vorker medical liaison delegation has arrived in Shuttle Bay 2. Naomi straightened her uniform. Thank you. We'll be right there. As they walked through the pristine corridors of the Mercy's Promise, Caleb noticed Naomi's tension. Are you ready for this? Meeting the species that destroyed our ship and killed our friends. She gave a humorless laugh. Not really, but it's necessary. The Vorker delegation consisted of 5 medical professionals, accompanied by a neural diplomat, one of Captain Reeves' trainees who would facilitate the complex cross-species communication. The aliens were taller than humans, with iridescent skin and multiple sets of articulated limbs. Their breathing apparatuses made soft clicking sounds as they processed the ship's atmosphere. The senior Vorker stepped forward, making a formal gesture of greeting. The neural diplomat translated not just words, but intentions. Chief Medical Officer Crosthal expresses profound remorse for the actions of the Vorker military against the Mercy's Light. He pledges that the knowledge and techniques shared aboard this vessel will benefit all species in honor of those lost. Naomi felt the familiar anger rising, but alongside it, something else, a recognition of the futility of hatred, the possibility of something better. She had glimpsed Vorker consciousness through the neural link. They were different, alien in ways humans might never fully comprehend, but they felt fear, hope, remorse. Tell Chief Medical Officer Crosthal that the Mercy's promise welcomes the Vorker medical delegation, she replied formally. We look forward to creating something meaningful from tragedy. As the delegation continued their tour, Caleb fell into deep discussion with a Vorker neurological specialist, their shared passion for healing transcending the barriers of biology and culture. Naomi found herself on the observation deck once more. Below, the blue-green curve of Earth filled the viewport. Home, with all its complexities and contradictions. She thought of the fleet of Fury, now being reconfigured for exploration and communication rather than war. The neural link technology that had almost become a terrible weapon was instead opening unprecedented avenues for understanding between species. The price had been unconscionably high. The attack on the Mercy's Light remained an unforgivable crime. But perhaps, in their response, humans had found something better than fury, a path to a universe where such atrocities might become increasingly rare. Admiral Pham joined her at the viewport. The older woman looked tired but satisfied. The joint medical initiative is proceeding well, she observed. 6 months ago, I would have considered this impossible. 6 months ago, I would have wanted them all dead, Naomi admitted. The Admiral nodded understandingly. Revenge is the most natural reaction in the universe, Major. Every species feels it. The difficult path is finding alternatives. Do you think it will last? This peace is never permanent, Pham replied pragmatically. But understanding, once achieved, is harder to unravel. What you and Dr. Nguyen did, showing the Vorker the truth through the neural link, created something new. A foundation for communication that goes beyond words and cultural misunderstandings. Naomi watched as Earth slowly rotated below them, night falling across Asia, dawn breaking over the Americas, the endless cycle of darkness and light that had witnessed humanity's greatest triumphs and most terrible failures. They fired on a hospital ship, she said, softly, and we answered not just with fury, but eventually with wisdom. I think I can live with that legacy. In the medical bay, Vorker and human physicians work side by side, learning from each other's techniques. In the research labs, the neural link technology evolved, its therapeutic potential finally taking precedence over military applications. And throughout the Mercy's promise, the memory of its predecessor served not as a call for vengeance, but as a constant reminder of why this work mattered. The stars stretched endlessly before them as the ship prepared for its first official mission. There would be other conflicts, other misunderstandings in the vastness of space. But for now, at least, the Fleet of Fury had found a different purpose, channeling humanity's passion and determination not into destruction, but into healing the wounds of the past and preventing those of the future. Far beyond the ship, in the infinite darkness between stars, the fragments of the Mercy's Light continued their silent journey through the cosmos, a memorial to what had been lost and a distant marker of how far they had come.